Hey, welcome back, everybody. Hey, Chorus.
Hey,
Good to see you,
everybody.
man.
How are you, Chad?
Good. I'm good. I'm better. We had a rough shart. We had a rough shart. We had a rough start to the show. I was setting up, and I feel bad because my buddy was helping me set up. He was just trying to help. And I was setting up our monitor and for reference. And I set it up wrong, and it fell over, and it broke. $550 down the tubes. And I was crushed. Honestly, I was crushed with that dang monitor. So I let Chorus know, and when he got here, I was like, "Oh, bummer." And so he helped me rally together another monitor so we can make the show happen because we're pushing forward. I called my wife. I called Bree, and I was like, "Oh man, we came out of a rough week, honestly. Just as far as discouragement or whatever." And so it's been kind of a battle, but I had a little rally with my wife, and she said, "Oh, we're getting through this." She said, "Push forward." I said, "You're right." So I cussed at her, and I told her off. No, I'm just kidding. No, I accepted that, and we are pushing forward. We're doing a show. Yes. So this will probably be actually our fourth or fifth show. I'm kind of counting. I'm organizing because we have a couple banked. I keep saying that, but yeah, check it out. We're gonna jump right in. We're gonna go into. I want to tell you guys about my jacket. This jacket is a French Moleskin worker's jacket, and so do you know what? So you know what Moleskin books are, or the notebooks?
Yeah, the notebooks. Is there a correlation between the brand, or is it
I don't
a
think
material?
so. No, I think it's the material idea. So Moleskin, I guess. So I did some research, and Moleskin is what they call it because it's kind of textured like moleskin. It's finely wound cotton, and I saw this puppy. I'll get into the story about it, but these are. If you can see the patina on this puppy, I say puppy, it's so stupid. But it looks worn. It's not super like worn, but it has a texture and a patina. I guess I don't know what else to say.
Is the character from the material, is that inherent to it, or is it through wear and tear?
It's through wear and tear, exactly. So I guess to understand, this is like to the French what like a Levi's denim jacket is to Americans. This is like very common, or it used to be. The blue one specifically, the technology provided that it was became more prevalent like the 40s and the 50s. This one might be from that era. I do know that it cost me a lot of money, probably more money than I've spent on most of my clothes. And so the story behind this I keep saying puppy. What is that? Who am I? Make fun of me, please. Oh yeah, so these were mostly worn by like farmers and like factory workers in France, but it is kind of a very much so emblematic French article of clothing.
And we're giving it away after this show
and this is gonna go away for free. No. It's actually really special to me. This is a part of the show and tell part of the show. I got this from a shop here in New Mexico called Santa Fe Vintage. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's two different shops. One of them was a warehouse where it had the most highly curated and meticulously organized vintage clothes, vintage stuff of anywhere in the world. It was by Scott Corey. There's an article here. Let me scroll down. It was by appointment only. And I wasn't super cultured on it before we went. We went, me and my friends, it was me, my wife, and Aaron and Brittany, my buddies. And we scheduled an appointment. We were visiting Santa Fe. And we didn't realize quite how serious our scheduling of this appointment was. But you go in,
So
he
you had
lets
to
you in.
you had to book it.
Yeah, no, he's like, hey, it's by appointment only, but I'll be here.
Wow.
Come on by. And so we went in. Because there's two shops, or there used to be. One was the Outpost. It was in kind of the square, the downtown area of Santa Fe. And the other one was in kind of like a different area entirely. But that was their warehouse. That's where they kept most of their goods. Well, so we went down, we scheduled an appointment, we went in, he opened up the door, and it was a very unassuming building. It was like just a really boring from the outside building. And so we walked in, and you kind of see his office, and it's cool, kind of like this type of vibe. And then he's like, all right, go ahead and check out the warehouse, and let me know if you need anything. And so he walks us through this door, and as soon as you walk through the door, you see a whole rack of vintage Levi's jeans.
Wow.
And it's a huge American flag, and I think it shows in some of the article there in the photo. But it's the biggest collection of vintage stuff. That's in his office space. So it's kind of just a little collage of Scott Corey, who's actually playing this song right here that we're listening to, who is the guy that opened the door for us. And he is the guy as far as one of the world's most renowned pickers for vintage goods, highest taste of all of America's greatest. And this is French, but he was one of the best, most educated pickers. And so we went into the warehouse and kind of looked around, and I didn't know. I'm an ignorant guy, I was looking around, but I was very blown away. He has a whole section of military vintage. He's got a whole section of French vintage. He's got a whole section of blankets, Native American weavings, of a children's vintage clothing. It was like you walked into a not to equate it to a Walmart, but it was not as big as a Walmart, but it was huge. And the amount of gear that he had in there. So anyways, we go in, and we didn't really kind of know what we were getting ourselves into. And I'm looking around, and I'm in a dream. This is awesome. And I find this guy, and I see actually like 10 of them. And I was blown away because they're all worn. They're vintage. They're old. It's like from the 40s or 50s. And I put this one on, and it fit. And I looked at my wife, and I knew she was going to get mad at me. God bless you. And I say, honey, I got to get it for two reasons. I got to get it because it fits, and it's perfect. It's a perfect jacket. And then I also felt like I had to get it because we booked this guy's time to go look through his stuff, and none of us really planned on buying much. And then I looked at the price tag, and it was like, I think it was like $500.
Wow.
And my wife was so mad at me. Bree was so mad. But she also knew, she's like, you're going to do it, aren't you? You're going to get it anyway. I don't know if it was $500. It was $300 to $500. It was a lot of money for a jacket, especially for her. She's like, no way. And so after looking around, checking everything out, I picked this, and I said, I'm going to get it. And so we talked with him for a while. Turned out we knew a few people in the same world. He knew my uncle. But he really was one of the greatest pickers. So I'm really happy that I ended up getting it, because I have a little story, a memento of Scott Corey, who sadly, after not too long, he ended up passing away kind of suddenly. None of us really quite knew it. Can you kind of zoom in on the caption there? I can read it. On October 9, Scott Corey, a world-renowned picker and curator of American vintage clothing, artifacts, and style, lost his brief battle with pancreatic cancer. And so, sadly, God, rest in peace, Scott. But what ended up happening, I guess they ended up selling the warehouse off, and the Outpost, which is still in Santa Fe, is still in operation by his business partner, Jules. And I visited there not too long ago, a couple months ago. And she's also great as far as like, man, she's got great taste, and she's a jewelry maker of it in her own right. But yeah, I'm grateful for having a little memento, especially right around that time. from a serious American, I'd say he's an American icon, whether or not a lot of people know him. But yeah, that's kind of the show and tell, is this jacket is a significant French piece of history. But it has a strong American tie for me. So show and tell, I always want to like show and kind of highlight things that I think have a lot of personality, history, kind of anchored in tradition, Southwest tradition or American tradition, or really quality goods, because this is a quality jacket. The reason why these are sticking around and why they're actually really sought after to this day is partially because of how they were made. It's fine cotton, and they're soft, but because they're so finely, the moleskin jackets are the cotton's so finely put together, they're more durable. And so I guess there was the saying that in this book, actually, this is Eric Maggiore put together a bunch of these vintage workwear, American. He actually just put out a American Western wear, the history of American Western wear, something like that. But he puts together a bunch of these anthologies, and this is in there, this jacket.
No way.
Yeah. 7 things to know about the moleskin jacket. And I thought it was fun. I was trying to figure out how do you pronounce the dang thing?
Yeah.
It's a moleskin jacket, but it's moleskin. I think the French might pronounce it slightly moleskin.
Sure.
But moleskin, it's literally moleskin. It's modeled after the idea of it feeling like moleskin. But yeah, so he wrote a little thing about it. We do sell these. If you want one of these, send us an email, info@chadbarela.com. And so that's kind of how I learned about these and this jacket. It's kind of pretty cool. There's another page here. In fact, that's literally my jacket right there. It's the same tag and everything. But I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh.
Did you immediately know the significance of
I didn't.
of the garment?
I had no idea.
You just fell in love right off the rack?
Yeah, just looking at it. If you look at this thing, I mean, it's got like fade. It's got kind of like a sun fade or something, you know? But it's just from wear. It's not like worn. It has a couple little like, I don't know, holes or things, but for the most part, it's real durable. And one of the stories he says in this book, he says that the cattle hair don't pierce my jacket. Somebody had said that at one point about this jacket. So it's meant to be a durable workman's jacket. And I just think that that's awesome. These quality goods stick around. Everything we make today is really kind of just a piece of shit.
It's kind of like the opposite of fast fashion, what that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It lasts like a lifetime. It doesn't get thrown away after 6 months and fall
Exactly.
apart.
When I buy stuff, for the most part, I want to buy something that I can give to my son, you know, that he can wear at some point and that he would treasure, hopefully, you know, if I can raise him up to appreciate the same things. But
what comes to mind is like a silver ring is what comes to my mind.
Well, that's just, I'm in that world. Yeah.
There you go.
Funny enough, you bring that up. So this is, you can't really see it. Maybe you zoom in. This is a turquoise mined in New Mexico. A nice green. I was able to pick a bunch of this up from my uncle. And these will probably be out by the time this episode airs. I call this frame, I don't think anyone makes it quite like this. It's difficult to see, but it's kind of a 2-tier frame. And I made these from scratch. And I call it the Amigo ring. So if you're in need of a friend, just know that you can always buy one. I
like that. Yeah, that should go on the tag.
Yeah. But that's turquoise mine in New Mexico. It's Tyrone. It's from the Tyrone mine. I think it's a funny title for a mine, but it's an awesome.
What does that mean?
I have Tyrone,
or just sounds.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just sounds odd.
I don't know. Actually, I should probably do some history into that. But yeah, I never actually mentioned this on the podcast in previous episodes, but kind of the stepping stone to doing podcasting is what I'm talking about when I do the show and tells. I'm in that world of heritage, heirloom jewelry, heirloom goods, things like this. So the things I really appreciate, and so it really informed and informs kind of the mission of this podcast or the shows through the common union is preserving tradition, preserving traditional goods. And so a lot of the methods in silversmithing methodology all comes through my heritage in a sense, in New Mexico tradition. And I think that's a perfect segue, funny enough, into my dad. My dad taught me silversmithing. I don't know if I shared that in previous episodes. And that's what I do mainly I'm primarily a silversmith. That's my bread and butter. That's what brings the bacon home. But my dad taught me way back when. And yesterday I shot these photos of him at sundown. What a guy. Oh my gosh, what a guy. You guys, I wish you could know him. He's a meek guy. Nothing but good things to say about him. A hardworking man. He worked for the city for years and years. He actually worked for my uncle before that in the jewelry world. And it just as a humble hobbyist for a while when I was growing up, he would just work in the garage and make jewelry. And eventually I got curious and I said, hey, teach me. And he taught me. And we've kind of had this synergistic relationship where he'll make, I'll make. And funny enough, for the first time this summer, I think we're doing the same event. We're doing the Santa Fe Contemporary Market. I don't know if that said that perfectly, because they're very meticulous with how they label this market. It's not the Santa Fe Hispanic Market or whatever. It's the Contemporary Market, I think. Sorry if I messed that up. But we both got entered into that, or we got accepted into that. So we'll be doing that this summer. And I think that'll be a really cool little milestone for us. Father-son situation. He'll have his own booth. I'll have my own booth. And we'll both be selling as Barelas at this contemporary market. It'll be pretty cool. I'm excited about it. But yeah, my dad taught me the craft, and I didn't really care for it so much because I was infatuated with music, which he also kind of imparted on me at an early age through like guys like Bob Dylan. He was the guy that showed me like Cat Stevens, Bob Dylan, a lot of the early guys, just CCR, 60s music. And I think that's kind of informs his personality. I tried to define my parents, like what kind of culture do I come from? What are my parents identify? How do I identify my parents? Because everybody's parents kind of have a culture. Every family kind of has a culture of origin. And I think ours is like Christian hippie. It's like the redeemed hippies. I think that's what my parents are. And we brought that up talking about it recently. And yeah, I think they came out of the Jesus Revolution. And my dad had a lot of sympathies, and he had love for like all of the old music. And he really, I think that's I'm so grateful that he imparted a lot of that culture to me in high school. I remember, I don't know, for whatever reason, I think that's where I kind of departed from a lot of my peers, was the appreciation of the 60s and folk music and traditional music. It's always been a part of me, but I really do think it roots back to my dad, him imparting that to me. I always loved folk, like Fleet Foxes, a lot of that's modern, type of thing. But it was, all my friends were into like metal. They were all into like post-rock. And I got into some of that. I went to all of those shows. I was a part of that scene to a degree. In fact, I played with Aaron, one of my best buds. He started a band in 1989. We played in a post-rock heavy band, Same with your cousin.
That's fun.
What was that band called? It was the the follow-up to Painting Rome. But those guys, Isaac Escobar, and just naming local music guys. Rob, remember Rob?
I think I do.
Rob Martinez, I believe is his name.
I think I do.
All of these guys that continued in the creative world. Funny enough, Isaac became an Instagram guy. Rob became kind of a music bed, videographer. I don't know what he's up to now. But yeah, I was in a band with those guys. That was when I was tight with your cousin. Chorus is a family that just stretches throughout all of the depths of Albuquerque.
Yeah, you find my relatives in the weirdest places.
I do.
You just stumble upon them.
I was like, hey, I got to bring your I don't know who he was in your, I guess he was your brother-in-law?
Which one?
Steve-O.
Oh, yeah. He was my uncle through marriage.
Oh, uncle. Gosh, I don't even know. See what I'm saying? Is like, I wanted to bring him on to have him on the podcast. We may still have him on. I was like, I didn't realize you were related to him.
Yeah.
It just never ends. But yeah, that's kind of that segment there. I don't really have much more, but let's take a pause. There's a guy I listened to, what's his name? Alex Hermosi. But he was talking about all my heroes. I wish they would have started Are we going?
Yeah.
Cool. He said, I wish all of my heroes would have recorded their journeys to success so that I could watch it, so that I could see how, and he says, could you imagine Amazon when they were about to lose their company so many times? If he would have just kind of done like vlogs or whatever, things that he would have expressed his concerns and all the different things, because, looking back, I mean, we all, it was all perfect because they are who they are today. Facebook is what it is today. So I was just kind of thinking about that as, I'm not a great businessman. Trying to explore that. I'm not. I have a lot to learn. Which brings me to, on one hand, I have a high degree of confidence, and I always have. There is that always goes back to, I don't think that'll ever leave me. I think that is just kind of like this, I don't know how to explain it, but I just have this high degree of, I know exactly how to explain it. Coming to Christ, coming to Jesus, your identity is in Christ. You are a son of the King of the Kings. You are a daughter or son of the King. And if you are royalty. And so there's a degree of a glorified self when you come to Christ. And so the truth is, we have kind of an uncapped potential. And that's true. And I have that, and I really do inherit that idea. That's where my confidence comes from as a creator or an entrepreneur or whatever I am.
I have to tell you, Chad, our friendship is relatively young. We've only known each other really well for maybe less than a year, maybe a year. And your confidence in your identity in the faith is something that I've learned the most just from being in your circle. And that's something that I hope you continue, even through this platform, export to other young men in particular. It's so needed and so necessary.
My identity in faith, what do you mean?
Like, you speak with a confidence in who you are because you know who Christ is and who you are in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And you inadvertently, sometimes intentionally, but inadvertently call others up to that standard as well. And that's something that's just like the natural flow of that identity and that understanding of that identity is something that I have experienced fruit in my own life from. And I'm hoping to kind of double down on that,
Good. I appreciate your encouragement there. And I don't, and that's not to say that I understand the depths of my identity in Christ and the fullness of my potential or everyone's potential. And the truth is, and I do share this with others, is that when we are in Christ, you are, like I said, a son of the King, a daughter of the King of Kings. You are royalty. And I know that to be true. And that was a monumental moment of my understanding, I guess, revelation that happened. And I did share that before, but of coming back to Albuquerque when my mother-in-law and my father-in-law spoke over me, you are a man of God. And when you accept that, when you wrestle with that and you accept that eventually, and if you are in Christ, you are a man or a woman of God. That is your true identity. Then you ought to have a great sense of confidence. So all that to say, I have a great sense of confidence, but I also think I have, in a sense, an inflated sense of confidence. And let me explain what I was exploring. And I told my wife this, and she laughed, and we had a little thing about it. But she believes in me, and she's been so great to me, encouraging, even in doing this. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, beginning of the show, I broke my monitor. And I called her, and I just wanted to vent. And I was genuinely sad. I was really bummed. And I called her, and I said, hey, my monitor broke. We're not doing great financially. I'm not saying that for any reason publicly. But then the monitor broke, and I was like, bummer. I'm bummed. And I just wanted her, and what she said, she was like, hey, push forward. Keep going. Do it anyway. And I was like, taken. All right, we're going to do it anyway. And thank you, Chorus. He rallied. We got his monitor. We brought it to the shop, and we're doing it. That was a tangent to say nothing. I don't think it was a tangent, purely a tangent. But I was talking to my wife about this, and she said, she laughed, and I thought, what are you laughing about? And it wasn't a negative thing, but she knows me to have a lot of confidence, a high degree of confidence. She shares that with her friends, and I know she does. I overhear that sometimes, and I do have a high degree of confidence, but there are moments like right now. I'm not good at discipline. I'm not a super disciplined guy. I'm an obsessive guy, and that obsession kind of overshadows, I'd say, the discipline that it requires to be, say, a successful man, a successful person in business. But even just doing this podcast, we've been diligent. Chorus has been very diligent. We come every Monday, we record. And that's discipline, I suppose. But I find that I lack in budgeting. I lack in operating a calendar. Oh, I cannot open a calendar to save my life. But I feel so limited that if I'm going to excel, if I'm going to progress past where I'm at right now in success or scalability or whatever it is, that I've got to at some point engage with calendars, get good at scheduling things, managing my time better. And in the same way, budgeting, planning for if you're failing to plan, you're planning to fail. That's true. I know it. I know the truth, but I don't behave according to it. That's the problem. So this year has been kind of a big exploration of systems, employing systems and discipline, because that's my biggest hindrance. And I'm sure, many others struggle with that as well. But I think that reckoning with that recently has been a big discouragement to me if I dwell on it, because these are things that I've not been able to conquer. And I don't want to blame anyone but myself. It's my own lack of drive, of hunger, of discipline, of drive. And not only I suffer, but my family suffers. Others suffer. There was a great thing I heard a long time ago. The world deserves your best. When I heard that, I was like, that's good.
That strikes a chord.
And when we don't do that, when we don't figure out how to budget, figure out how to manage our lives, figure out how to be a good family man, whatever it is that you're struggling with, that you're wrestling with, then you're selling the world short. You're selling everyone else short, your family. Not to discourage you, but that is to say, hey, and this is where I'm anchored at, right? You can overcome, especially as a Christian. Now, we overcome more meaningful things, I guess, than just business or success or this or that. But that is to say that we should have a spirit of like oh no, I can do anything. Why not? That's why I love Ye so much, is he has this idea, this sense of unmatched confidence in himself. He put, I remember hearing this. He said he put Steve Jobs, like when he's recording a record or something, he'll put Steve Jobs, he'll put all of the most excellent achievers of our lives, of our generation, up on the wall. And he'll just think of he'll channel that success, whatever they've achieved, and he'll say, I can do that. And the truth is, we can. And the only reason we don't is because we don't believe in ourselves. And oftentimes, because we don't believe in ourselves, we don't achieve. We don't back it up. And so I'm in this mindset. I'm in this mind space. I want this to do well. I want a podcast to do well. Why do I want it to do well? I want it to do well because I want to be faithful. I want to give the world my best because it deserves my best. I genuinely have a burden. I think about this sometimes, and I have a couple of silversmiths I'm showing the ropes to. I feel a genuine burden to share what I've learned so freely, to give it to them. Say, hey, I learned it freely. Now I had to give some effort in, so do you. You're gonna have to endure some patience. It's a skill that requires patience, severe patience. But if they can do those things, then hey, freely give, freely receive. And I feel a sense of responsibility to give what I've learned. Not that I'm of a certain success level necessarily, but I do have some things that I have to share. And the world deserves to know those things. And whether or not they care about them, that's another story. But that's what I've been working through in my mind, is figuring out how to overcome my weaknesses. And I do have many of them. And I think what's interesting is we have a sense, especially as being in front of a camera, that I've got something special to share. I don't. I'm not special. But I think there's power in your weakness. And I'm really trying to chew on that, really wanting to understand that, really wanting to mold that as a part of my being. And that Alex Hermosi, is that a part of this? I think it was, right? Saying, share your journey. This is my journey. I have a lot to learn. And I hope to continue in that. Today was not a setback. It was a big discouragement that was extremely brief. And praise God that I have a wonderful wife who encouraged me to move past it. And that I moved past it. And onward and upward. That's what I think. On another note, I wanted to kind of explore.
Let's pause.
Yeah.
I need to plug in the laptop.
I think one of the biggest struggles being self-employed is a dream come true. I'm successful in my previous mindset. My biggest dream years ago, decade ago, was to be self-employed, to be able to make my own way, not to necessarily be dependent on anyone else for my income. And I have achieved that. And now there's a new mountain I want to climb. And it's scalability. Why is it so hard to scale? It's really hard for me to scale. And maybe it's the same way for other people. Maybe it expresses itself in different ways. But I find that if there's something I need done, I'll figure it out and I'll do it myself. And that's good and that's bad. It's good because there's a principle in entrepreneurship that I've picked up. Don't delegate understanding. You want to understand things. You want to know how to do things so that you can kind of be independent, maintain that independence in a sense. But you can't do everything yourself. You're going to burn out. I've burned out so many times over the last decade. Operating my own business, be it from photography, videography, which was the first business I really started. I guess apart from guitar lessons. I first started doing music. I pursued songwriting. And then I moved over when I was in Nashville into photos and video. And that's when I kind of started invoicing and figuring out the business situation. And then when I got married, I started picking up silversmithing. And then I moved into that, and that's when I started an e-commerce brand, a business online. Barela.com was launched 2015, I believe. Almost 10 years. But I lost my train of thought.
I feel like there was this thread being kind of woven, and I'd like to ask you a question. Do you think that confidence comes from or is correlated to a high tolerance for risk? Like, are you able to endure and go out on that limb because you have a taste for risk and you're not scared of it?
Do I have a high tolerance for risk? I don't think I do. And I think that the reason I don't think I do in this moment or prior to this moment, because I've been so hesitant to want to hire anybody. And in a sense, I'm very grateful for that because we went through 3 years of turmoil with COVID and political, turmoil, whatever. And the risk of employing people and the wokeism and the conflict that would have brought to my business potentially. I wasn't willing to take that risk. I'm grateful that I wasn't, but I think people, my friends, my peers might think of me as a risk taker, and I don't see myself as a risk taker. Which is why also, there's a saying actually, I don't remember what it was. It was something along the lines of trusting others. And I think it comes out. I think I have a weakness in trusting others, and that's the reason why I don't hire people. That's the reason why I don't. That's not to say that I won't in the future, because I think it's a deficiency in my own character. I truly do. This is the reason why I don't depend on other people. Is ultimately, and this is a fallacy I need to work through, is that I don't believe in other people. That's wrong. Because I shouldn't. I should believe in other people. If I believe in myself, I should believe in other people. Because I am no different than anyone else. That's true. And I really, really believe that. But you know what I'm saying?
I totally do. That kind of comes back to a thought that I had earlier in the show where you talked about your identity in Christ. And there's this idea that I've been playing with that you don't ask much of people that you don't expect much of. People that you perceive as incapable, you don't task them with a big ask, right? You don't trust them with something that if it falls through, it's going to ruin the day or whatever. And if I turn that back on myself and I say, okay, I'm not pushing myself to meet whatever expectations I've set for myself, it's kind of rooted in the idea that I don't expect that much of myself. And so how do I call myself up to this standard? And if I'm going to do that, then I need to also have that sort of expectation of others in my life.
Mm-hmm. And it goes back to this idea. I really do have a high sense of confidence, but I have a low self-esteem. It's really strange. I don't really understand it. I have a hard time depending on others. And there's a couple reasons why that may be. Partially is I don't want to owe anybody something. And the other part of it is I don't want to be disappointed if they don't deliver what I hope. because then that would
It's like hedging your expectations.
Yeah, exactly. It's like rejection or fear of rejection. It's all rooted in fear. Funny enough, fear of rejection and fear of having to deal with the situation of communication. Even funny enough, of like, hey, this isn't it. I don't want to discourage you. I don't want to bum you out. Let's keep moving forward. But that's an uncomfortable and unfun conversation to have. Say you get in a situation where you hire somebody and they don't meet your expectations, which honestly happens a lot. Now there's been a very rare occasion where I've hired somebody to do something and they've done an exceptional job beyond my expectations. But and this is the curse of being the technician, of being the guy who does all of the branding, all of the nooks and crannies of things. Because you have a very meticulous and judgmental mindset. And when someone else performs something, then they have this pressure. So I know that I'm imputing this pressure upon someone else who I might, hey, let's partner, let's do something. They might not want to because they're like, oh, you're going to be a difficult, person to work with.
Or they don't want to let you down.
And that too.
Yeah.
You're going to be difficult to work with and I don't want to let you down. But that can be solved in partnerships, in open communication, in figuring out. But the problem is like finances and like paying for things and systems and contracts and like, oh my gosh, am I going to pay like, $500 for a logo or, like for like a little branding item and then just not like it and just say, oh, okay, I'll pay for it. I'll do it myself now. Because that's what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
And that's why, and I'm grateful for it in one sense because it has challenged me to figure it out, which is acquired more skills unto myself. But it has robbed me of my collaborative spirit, of depending on others and being able to say, hey, let's partner, let's work together, accept the differences in opinion. That I have a weakness in this, absolutely, and I want to grow in it. I want to grow in leadership. I have a heart. I'm growing in this. I actually am growing in this because I'm a dad now of 3 kids. You kind of have to be at some point a leader, and not to give myself a totally bad reputation, but you gotta be forward in your communication in marriage as well. I mean, it requires proper communication, upfront of communication. In any creative endeavor, I was talking about this with a friend this morning at the coffee shop, and I was saying, sadly, in any creative endeavor we engage in, the conversations are too often in the modern era, always affirming, always positive, never critical. That's not good. Now, we both have to have a responsibility to be willing to accept criticism, negative and positive, to be not calloused, but to have durability. And then we both, on the other side of it, have to be willing to engage in constructive criticism. Great practice. I genuinely, I'm acclimated to it at this point in recording this. Please, if you hear something that you don't like, something that you think that you have insight that you could probably improve, comment it or send it to the info@chadbarela.com. I want to hear it. I am tuned to want to hear it. It's not going to hurt my feelings.
We had one faithful listener this week that let us know it's all BS.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I had an Instagram guy send me, he says, shut up with your BS. And I just liked his comment. I've gotten a lot of negative comments and I think I'm not that, fully acclimated, but I'm fine. If you got some constructive criticism, please give it to me because it is life. And that's what I'm saying. It's like a doctor saying, hey, you need to get in shape. You're going to die. Get in shape. I want that same thing. And I would love if anyone listening would give that to me. Because that's honestly one of the biggest benefits that I wanted to gain from doing this podcasting situation. is personal growth through criticism, through ruthless criticism. Actually, I was expecting up until this point more ruthless criticism, and we've got a lot of positive, and I'm very appreciative of the positive. I really am. But I can learn from the criticism, loving criticism too, included. So, anyways, yeah, I was a bunch of rambling thoughts. I hope that was of any value. I don't have too much more. I think that was kind of most of what I had, right? Just kind of riffing on some of those things. Inflated self-confidence. I think we can get to this place where we're unteachable. That's what I was kind of getting at in my monologue there. And I think I'm coming around to, I'm not unteachable. I'm not. I have a lot to learn. I have a big mountain to climb, a lot of big mountains to climb. But there is a deceptive ego forward, whatever you'd call it, whatever it is that comes up that tells you, you're good. You've learned how to work a computer. You've learned how to do these things. You've learned these things. You don't need to, humble yourself anymore. You're achieved. And in some ways, in my, progression of career or whatever things I've done, I have achieved a certain amount of accolades, accomplishments that could, help me build an ego. But I'm starting an entirely new endeavor with this show and the Common Union that I am realizing, and I'm very appreciative of it, and it's fueling me actually, that I am at the beginning of the ascent of an entirely different mountain. And it's intimidating, and I'm having to wrestle with that and figure out, you're going to be a beginner for a while. You're going to suck at this. You may not suck at it, but you don't have any accolades. You're going to be at the bottom. And that's been very humbling. And I'm working through that. And it's becoming, what I'm talking about is kind of a check in my sense of confidence. I'm starting a new endeavor. And now I'm needing to start all over, which is awesome. The problem with that is that now I'm acquiring a new skill, and that's good. But now where this brings me, and maybe this is a whole other topic, is I cannot focus. This is where my brain is right now, and this is where I'm wrestling. I cannot find focus. I've started an entirely new endeavor, and I have the grace and mercy of my wife and the patience of starting a new endeavor. But I'm starting at the bottom of a hill, and I lost my train of thought. Dang it.
I assume that this particular sort of like excursion for you creatively would be a lot more similar to your music days, in that you get feedback in a much more of a real-time format versus maybe artist chat where you upload, you post, and then maybe it trickles in. It's a little bit different from like spoken word content and like kind of bearing your thoughts and your soul to the world. And so like is there like a familiarity there where like you're on stage and you're receiving the feedback maybe a little more raw? People are either nodding in agreement or they're checked out. Or does this feel more like photo, video, silversmith, sort of like honing a craft and then just releasing it into the world?
I don't know.
Or is it just entirely different?
I don't know. I'm starting, with I've started so many new things over the years, and like music, I got to experience touring. I got to experience writing songs and making friends with people in the business in Nashville. And then I migrate into shooting photos and videos for these bands. these friends, and then I migrate into silversmithing, and now I'm creating jewelry for these people. And now and I spent a lot of time doing that. But this is my thing. I'm silversmithing. This is what I'm, investing in. This is what I'm doing. And now I'm starting all over again from scratch. And I'm thinking, do I have it in me to start a whole new endeavor? I do. But do I have that same degree of hunger that I had when I was going to pursue music, when I was going to pursue photo, video, when I was going to pursue silversmithing as an owner of already, established businesses? That's what's hard. What I'm trying to channel is hunger. I want hunger. I want to be hungry. Why? Not for money. That's a nice bonus. Like, I want my kids to have, a decent upbringing. My wife to feel safe and secure. And it'd be nice to have a Ford Bronco someday. That's real. But it's not for those things. It's for climbing a mountain. That really is what it is. It's hey, I'm not doing this. And I genuinely do feel the call of the Lord to say, hey, share. I've given you things. I've taught you things. You've experienced certain things. Share those. Put your light on a stand. It's the let your light shine thing. Share it. And it's been so intimidating to do those things on a platform entirely public. But I think that's the fun of this. That's why I'm so interested in doing this. Because there seems to be like a wall that I've got to break past. It goes back to the weaknesses of discipline, of time management, of budgeting, of different things like that. These are hills, mountains I've not yet climbed. And to me, they're exciting. Even though they're like really boring. They're exciting because they're like, you can conquer those. And if you conquer these things, what's on the other side of that hill? What's on the other side of that mountain? I don't know. I'd like to see. Ultimately, it's rooted in being faithful. And so I want to be faithful. And whether or not, hey, I could pass away tomorrow, no doubt. But keep climbing. I guess that's just, I don't know. That's it. That's the element of it. Keep climbing. Keep going. I tell my son, it makes me emotional. I was saying it earlier. I was saying it to myself. No one was here. Everybody left. And I crashed my screen. And I was yelling. I was mad. And I yelled, I said, get up and try again. And it made me so emotional because that's what I tell my son. We don't give up. I'd be a hypocrite. Not that I'm in any way tempted to give up. No doubt. There's a fly. But I don't know. I'm preaching to myself through preaching to my son. And keep climbing. Whatever the mountain is. Could be alcohol. Could be drugs. Could be fornication. Adultery. Could be whatever it is. I don't know. That's my story, right? Never give up. Never give up. Love you. Bye.